begin to contemplate the probability of a Romney or Santorum-Obama contest, we come to the inevitable question about voting for the lesser of two evils for president. It's a very unpleasant position to be in, but frankly, I've never had any other experience in the voting booth. Politicians, it seems, almost always fail to live up to my specifications in every respect. It's extremely frustrating. So here we liberals are again, facing a retrograde, bloodthirsty reactionary candidate versus a slightly less retrograde, bloodthirsty reactionary candidate, both of whom are completely unacceptable, yet one of whom will almost certainly be president for the next 4 years. What to do? Assuming you don't ascribe to the destroy the village in order to save it philosophy or aren't attempting to bring on the rapture, you need to figure out what your relationship to the political system is and your place in it. It's not easy. Here's how one unprincipled Democratic hack puts it. Well, he isn't actually a Democratic hack. He's actually a left libertarian and one of the Democratic Party's fiercest critics, Noam Chomsky. When asked about whether or not one should vote for the lesser of two evils, he said this: "To say it doesn't make any difference is to show your contempt for the general population. A lot of this is correct. The two parties are effectively two factions of one party, the business party. But the factions are somewhat different. And as I mentioned, over time, the differences show up in benefits, working conditions, wages, the things that really matter to people. So yes, there's a difference. There's a narrow difference. You have to ask, is this difference enough for me to pick the lesser of two evils? And there's nothing wrong with picking the lesser of two evils. The cliche makes it sound like you're doing something bad. But no, you're doing something good. You get less evil." Now, Chomsky doesn't mention the strategic argument that assumes the Democrats will only become more liberal once they lose elections, so it's important to withhold your vote. I'll just say that it's not been my experience that people always take the lessons from defeat that you want them to. When politicians lose, they generally attribute it to a greater desire on the part of the voters for what the victor was promising. And the forces for the status quo are more than willing to help them spread that news. However, there are other ways to change this hideous duopoly. Unfortunately, they are plodding long-term projects. In the current two-party winner-take-all system, primaries are useful, for instance. They're hard to mount because it's difficult to find people who are willing to do it, and even harder to find the money to beat the entrenched interests in the political establishment. It's not easy, but it's not impossible either. There's also the thankless task of building a mass movement and changing the fundamental terms on which these elections are being fought. When you look at the history of the various political epochs, changing course is rarely an overnight prospect. All presidents operate within the political framework of their time, and it's fairly clear that our current framework is still reactionary. So working toward that goal is actually imperative. We could also try to change our winner-take-all system. It's a long-term project as well, but it would solve many of our problems. One of the main reasons we always end up with a two-party system beholden to money and powerful interests instead of a more responsive multi-party system is purely a matter of technical electoral processes. They can be changed. It's a heavy lift, but other countries have done it. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd change our Constitution and make this a more representative democracy. I've said it many times before. America's Bill of Rights has been a model for modern democracies, but there's a reason why nobody's adopted the rest of our system. It's a clunker. I'm all for changing it. And meanwhile, it's the founder's world, and we just live in it.